Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Jeff Heilman Project. I know we've been missing for the last couple of weeks, but we've been busy, especially with summer. And speaking of summer, I'm almost announcing like announcers of sports. And speaking of which, who's still in the FIFA Cup?
FIFA World Cup.
I know that Mexico's out.
Belgium
USA
is in,
out.
who beat the U.S.
Norway, I've heard, is doing good.
Norway did well. Norway's got the Vikings that are all the rage right now. So I think Norway is still in. Spain is still in. Who's in World Cup?
Argentina. I think I heard Argentina's still in.
I think Argentina's still in. France just beat Morocco today. Let's look at the bracket. So France just beat Morocco, so they're going to play the winner of Spain and Belgium. Belgium beat U.S., knocked U.S. out. Norway, England's going to be a big game.
When is that?
That's on Saturday.
Ooh.
That's going to be a big game. And then Argentina and Switzerland. So that's the round of 32. I think that's quarterfinals. And then we'll have the final game is on the 19th, which is next weekend, which will be.
So what do you think it is that's made soccer so popular? Because when I grew up, nobody even talked about soccer. David Beckham, I remember coming in and
everybody loved David Beckham.
Like everything changed. It was almost like what Tiger Woods did for golf, David Beckham did for soccer. But it does seem. Do you think we're just more global now, or is it just where we live?
I think the question. It's amazing when you look at the question that you're asking. What made soccer so popular?
Yeah.
And soccer's been around for
I know. That's why I'm like
1,000 years. I think the real question is what made soccer so unpopular in the U.S. And I think that baseball and football and basketball and ice hockey from our Canadian friends to the north helped make soccer unpopular in the U.S.
Sure.
For the Americans in the late 1800s and mid 1900s. Then don't forget we have golf. All right, so we look at our influences. Our influences are English and Irish, right? We were English, and we were invaded by the Irish. So we're going to have golf, tennis, cricket, then rugby, which becomes football, football Americano, and then baseball, which we created here, and hockey from Canada. Soccer is more of a Central Latin America and Middle Eastern.
Well, I think
sport.
Also, especially for where we are, like the stadium, we've never had soccer here in the Bay Area, which is where I was born and raised. Like I'm from here, and so soccer. I mean, I know all about the San Jose Giants and the Athletics, the A's, the Oakland A's, because we have those Coliseums and the Raiders and the 49ers. But we've never until this year had a stadium that could actually house soccer.
Well, we've had a professional soccer team across the street from the airport for probably 10 years. But I've never been to a game. I couldn't tell you who even plays there.
Yeah.
It used to be the Earthquakes, Oakland Earthquakes, I think. But
PayPal something now? I don't know.
I honestly I do not know. I don't pay attention to soccer except for World Cup.
Is Great America is right next to the stadium, and everyone
and in this
knows,
case, the one time when we're actually watching soccer, it's not in the soccer stadium that our local team, who I don't even know who it is, plays in, because it's FIFA World Cup, and the venue that's required for that is much bigger than
I
what
think
they have
that
across the street.
We couldn't be the Jeff Heilman Project and entrepreneurs without talking about the success of the Levi's Stadium logo.
Oh, that is a podcast in and of itself. Can we talk about what it's worth to cover your arse? Let's make this the cover your arse episode.
I told the kids when we were in the parking lot, I said, okay, kids, let this be a lesson to you. When you're building your business and you're building your brand, make sure your logo shape is as notable
can be
as
covered by
what
FIFA,
is on it.
and you can still use it on your homepage on Instagram. Yeah,
it's like, let's cover the swoosh because we can't.
That's
No, it's a swoosh. So there you go, guys. If you have a business and you're thinking of creating a logo, make sure it's freak of nature shape that everybody will be able to recognize. If your name has to be blotted out, that was
and I would love to hear, because I can see it from both camps, right? I can see the fact that Levi's could not have been happier for the press, to the point where it got them so much that there was so much grief raised around it that they literally put a photo of the covered Levi's logo on their Instagram homepage with millions of followers, because it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous. It's just freaking ridiculous from their point of view. And so why not go ahead and sell way more jeans and get way more attraction to the Levi's brand than you ordinarily would by just leaving the logo up there? And of course it makes FIFA look bad, but FIFA is not in this business for their health, right?
Right.
When we did the math on it, it was $400 million for the Super Bowl. That was my guess when we lived in San Diego for the Super Bowl in like 2002 when it was there. John Lynch played in the Super Bowl before he was running the show for the 49ers. I think he played in that Super Bowl. I think it was 2002. And I remember guessing, going, I wonder how much money comes into San Diego as a result of the Super Bowl. And I guessed at $400 million. And a couple years later, I read the statistic. It was like 420. So $420 million. You want to take a wild guess at what World Cup generates once every 4 years in revenue from the 100 games
much?
or so? It's $40 billion. That is 100 times the size of the Super Bowl in entertainment, travel, housing, stadium tickets, television advertising, apparel, and swash. What's it called? Swab? The stuff that you get.
The swag bags?
Swag
bags.
Let go of blank here. I'm thinking about that number. Yeah, it's literally 100 times more money than the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Because you're basically taking over 3 countries and the airwaves during prime time almost every night for 6 weeks. So yeah, World Cup is big business.
So do you think, I mean, I don't know, I didn't read any articles about it, but do you think that the reason why they went to that extent was because of Levi was just charging too much? Like they were going to ask for too much?
No, Levi's wasn't going to pay them anything, and they're not part of the FIFA brand like Coca-Cola. Oh. Right? Like there's certain brands that are spending
I always thought of it from the perspective
of
FIFA was going to have to pay Levi's to put their name.
No, it's that FIFA is controlling all branding during all televised games.
All right. So if they have a partnership deal with
what's called a clean venue.
Okay.
That's a term I'd never heard before this last World Cup. But they need a clean venue, a venue that doesn't have any markings that they can't control. So if you notice the digital scoreboards at the field level, there's somebody sitting there, rats in a cage with a scoreboard operator saying, okay, now it's time to run the Microsoft ad, or now it's time to run the Coca-Cola ad. But they're controlling that. So basically every camera angle at the field, every camera angle in the stadium, and every camera angle outside the stadium has to be controlled by FIFA, which is why they need a clean venue in order to do.
Got it.
In order to do their shots. So,
wow.
And when you're writing $40 billion worth of revenue checks and getting advertisers to spend hundreds of millions of dollars, I can also see it from the advertiser's perspective. They're like, hey, we're spending all this money. We're on brand with you. We don't just support you during FIFA World Cup. We support you all the rest of the time. This is our big payout because we get brand recognition and brand exposure during the FIFA Cup. We want to be treated as the exclusive multi-$100 million check writing advertising partner,
because
we're contracted with you to be.
Calvin Klein Jeans was sponsoring FIFA, then Levi shouldn't be anywhere in proximity.
It would be if it was that's a pretty straightforward competitive disadvantage, right, for somebody like Calvin Klein Jeans if they were advertising. But this is all wallet share. This is, hey, we don't want anybody getting in the way of Coca-Cola or Microsoft. And I should know this. I didn't even think about this until we were just talking about it. But who are the title sponsors for World Cup? Adidas, Aramco for energy, Coca-Cola, Hyundai, Lenovo, Qatar Airways, and Visa. That's it.
Yeah.
If it's not one of those logos, each of whom are spending hundreds of millions of dollars to advertise with FIFA during World Cup, if it's not one of those guys, they don't get on TV if FIFA is paying for.
So you've watched some of it. What do they say? Do they just refer to it as Welcome to the stadium. Do they just call it the stadium?
They did. They temporarily changed the name of the stadium from Levi Stadium to San Francisco Bay Area Stadium.
Oh, okay.
Something like
right.
that. Yeah.
I just thought they'd say the stadium.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the stadium, our stadium is turning 250 this year.
Isn't that amazing?
Happy birthday, America. Happy birthday. And what a wonderful, awesome thing that we've been able to celebrate freedom for 250 years, even though that still seems very short. Yeah. Even our daughter, Nessie, who's 9, said, that's not very long. And it isn't, but I don't think, I mean, it seems like a long time because nobody's lived 250 years. However, when you look at it compared to other countries, it is still, we're still a relatively new country.
Yeah, I remember one time, probably 15, 20 years ago, I was at Goodwill, and I met a guy who was in his mid-90s who told me, and whether he was telling the truth or not, I don't know. I mean, people at the Goodwill usually tell the truth, I suppose. But he was the youngest son of the youngest brother of an oldest brother who had served in the Civil War.
Wow. So
the oldest brother was born in, 1840? Mm-hmm. And then there was like 17 brothers. So it wouldn't have been 1840 because I think he was 15 when he went to war in 1865 at the end of the war. So he was born in 1850. And then there was another 40-something years before his, like 30, it was like 30 years between the 17 kids. So from 1850 to 1880, his dad was born. And his dad was born in 1880. He was born in 1920 or 1918, 1920, somewhere in there. And then I must have met him in, it wouldn't have been 2020s. It would have been probably 2010.
Yeah.
And I literally, he's like, my uncle, you're shaking the hand of the man that shook the hand of his uncle who fought in the Civil War. And I was like, wow.
Wow.
That's pretty incredible. And in fact, if you go online, you can actually interview, I don't know if it's Whose Line Is It Anyway or one of these old black and white TV shows from the 50s. But there was a guy it had to have been 1951, 52, who was interviewed on one of these shows. And he was like, you'd ask her questions, and it was a blind panel that was asking. And he was the youngest person in Ford's Theater that saw John Wilkes Booth shoot Abraham Lincoln. And the guy's literally interviewed on TV.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Right? Now he's in his 90s, and the guy was a kid in Ford's Theater the night that Lincoln was shot. But you think about 1865, sounds like forever and a day ago, and there's no photos of that time.
But 1965 would be 100 years, and people have lived to be 100.
Yeah, if it's 1950 or 1950, 1960, and the guy's literally, it's on TV. You can go on YouTube and see the guy that the kid that was in Ford's Theater was on television being interviewed.
You know what's a trip is, think about that. In like, you live to be 100, it'll be 2074.
2074, yeah.
That's crazy. That's, like people have lived to be 100, 110.
210 years after the Civil War.
84. That sounds so futuristic.
It just is to think about the fact that this country's 250 years old. And the founders didn't think it would make it to 200.
Yeah.
So obviously, thank God for technology and innovation and electricity, all these things that they could not have foreseen. Interesting. Love to hear in the comments the opinions on Trump's speech on the 4th of July at Mount Rushmore. We've actually been to that venue. There were a couple things he said that I thought were a little bit like, really? Like,
oh, there's lots of things that he says that that people go,
why?
Why? Just
we already know you're
keep it.
You're the president. Everybody knows that.
Keep it chat.
If you can kind of nip it, just nip it, dude. Nip it. You're still gonna have the haters, but at least the people that like you.
I love the saying, "A good preacher knows
when they're listening to you talk."
A good preacher knows when to shut up.
Yeah, exactly. If there was a lesson in brevity,
a good preacher knows when to stop preaching.
Yeah, he was preaching.
Oh
pretty
my
hard.
gosh! But yeah,
but
so
about 90% of what he said, I thought was great and very exciting, and a lot of it
I didn't
also
watch it.
very true. I watched it on 2X, and
nice.
and got through it as fast as I could so I could hear it.
Yeah.
But truth as I see it, as you know, I try to steer away from absolutes. But the truth as I see it, we have a stronger military, a bigger gross domestic product, not because of Trump, right? We're not giving credit to Trump here. We're giving credit to all the Americans, and for 250 years of momentum and compounding, we've got more car. I mean, Rich DeVos made a joke back in the 1950s in his great talk that was committed to congressional record called Selling America, and he talks about the fact that the Russians are mad at us because we have all the cars and they have all the parking lots. We have productivity, and we're not ashamed of it. We're not ashamed of the fact that we work extremely hard. I have friends that are getting new jobs. I have people that are getting recruited into new businesses. I have people that are friends of mine that are raising funds. There was a LinkedIn post this morning of 12 billionaires under the age of 22. And it was a panel of all these new billionaires that are getting billionaires. Billionaires. Like if somebody's 22 and they're a millionaire, they're a phenom.
Yeah.
They're a unicorn. I don't even know what to call a billionaire in their 20s. But that's what we're seeing. And so to be able to have more money, more tech, more internet, to invent the airplane, to invent...
I guess Taylor Swift's like in her 30s now, right?
Yeah, but Taylor Swift,
she's probably a billionaire.
She did it the hard way. She actually worked for it.
She actually had to have venues and weddings at
Traveled
Madison
around
Square
the
Garden.
world and was famous. And, I don't know that I would want to pay the price of Taylor Swift to be a billionaire. I think I'd have to make more than that to be that world famous. I don't think a billion would be enough.
I don't know. I feel like maybe when you become, it's kind of like is there really that big of a difference in the taste of a bottle of wine once it gets to a certain level? Like once you become a certain amount of famous, once you become a certain amount of famous, I just don't know that you can even get.
No, from the guys that I've talked to that have more money than they can spend, and it comes in literally faster than they can get rid of it. That number is way less than $1 billion.
Yeah.
It's pretty much about $3 million a year. Anything over $3 million a year, and you just can't, unless you're just gluttonous, unless you have to have the 200-foot yacht and your own private jet airplane, which I wouldn't even do that anymore. I'm not going to spend a year on a yacht. And if I did, I'd lease it anyway. I could lease it for way less than $300 million.
Well, you look at the people like Paul McCartney who are getting just the royalties are never going to stop.
Yeah.
The money's never going to stop pouring in.
Royalty income. And it's like, look, I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, I said gluttonous. That's true. But, not everybody that buys a $300 million yacht is gluttonous.
You can't spend. I mean, there's no way Paul McCartney can spend all the money that's coming in.
No, there's no way he can spend the money that's coming in. But what I'm saying is for the average 4-income family that had a really nice house and a couple of really nice cars and traveled to 5-star resorts and was on vacation 2 weeks a month and ate at the finest restaurants and drank the finest wines, like you're not going to be able to spend more than $200,000 or $300,000 a month. And that, I know there's people out there going, oh, I only make $2,000 a month. I understand. We've lived on $2,000 a month for 10 years. I know what it's like to be on that end of the spectrum. But me focusing on making $2,000 a month or getting rich people to think about poverty is not going to do anything for poor people versus getting poor people to think about the numbers that, what does it really take? And there was a guy going through on Instagram. I saw it last week. Who knows when it was recorded? But he was going through like the different tiers of income. And he's like, I got to 100 grand. I was like, oh my God, I got to $100,000 a month. And then I got to 200 grand. And I was like, it's not really that different from the $100,000 a month. And then he's like, then I got to 300 grand. And it actually was, my life became more complex because now he's got an extra $130,000 a month that he has to figure out what to do with in a responsible way so that he doesn't lose the cash value faster than the investments would go down if he made bad decisions. So I think that the time is coming. Universal basic income is a thing. I think conservatives and liberals are starting to agree on that. I'm very conservative, and I agree. Universal basic income is a thing. Eventually, it'll get to that point. I don't think it'll get to that point in my lifetime, but I do see it on the horizon as something that'll end up happening. And I think that you're going to see this new ultra what they call super high net worth individuals, which I think I don't know what the exact number is, but I think it's anything north of 10 million net worth. I think the super high net worth individuals is going to go from like 2 or 3% of the population to like 25% of the population. And you're going to see a whole lot of people who are stuck at $52,000 a year and paying 50% tax on that and will not be able to survive very well at all. And there will be a bludgeoning of lifestyle. And then you're going to see a bunch of people get fabulously wealthy and be able to travel around the world in private jets. And it's not just the GDP. It's not just the employment numbers that are looking at that. But look at the brands. Look at the new brand of jet service that's out there that is only business class seats. Right? $6,000 a ticket instead of $14 for first class.
Right.
But it's only business class. And it's fewer people on the plane. But it's like they wouldn't be building an entire airline and retrofitting 50 $300 million jets for business class only seats unless they knew, because of forecasting, that there were enough people who could spend $6,000 on a round trip ticket to New York because they can, because it's there, right?
Or they'll just write it off for as a business.
Yeah, they can write it off, but the fact is they've got it.
Yeah, have the company cover
and
it.
If you look at the Waldorf Astoria, just finished a multi-billion-dollar restoration on a hotel that's already there. Like, why wouldn't you just tear it down?
Yeah.
Because they can retrofit it for $1 billion instead of rebuilding it for $2 billion. So they're saving $1 billion on that. And it's the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, which means they can sell a 200 square foot junior suite for $1,700 a night rack rate, and the rates go up from there.
I think it's important that we talk about because, I think intuitively one would think that poor people or people that would consider themselves not having enough, that the answer is to give them money. And I would like to talk about for a minute that from the biblical standpoint, because you all know where we stand with that. But the scripture itself actually says to preach the gospel to the poor.
Exactly.
It doesn't say Jesus' answer to the people isn't give money to the poor, although he did, and he encourages generosity
preach the gospel.
And will always be benevolent, is always taking care of the widows and the orphans. But in order the education process, the coming to your intellect and your understanding of scripture is to preach the gospel to the poor. So help the people that find themselves in the position of lack with understanding. If you give a man a fish, he'll eat for the day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll be able to eat for his lifetime. And so I think that it's important that we cover and we understand that if we want to ascend to another level, if we want to be able to make sure that our family's needs are all getting met, that it's going to come from being taught how to think differently, being taught how by other successful people and by other mentors, that we can live in a free economy, that we can have capitalism be in our benefit, that we can do things like compounding interest. But it's going to come by, it's better if we can learn and study and grow, which is a big part of America, and being able to have the freedom to learn. That's really what we're talking about, is the freedom. That's really what our greatest achievement as a country has been, is to the preservation of the ability to learn. Because when you're in communism and when you're in socialism, what you can learn is capped.
They control everything.
What you can learn is limited. So I just want to say thank you for continuing, and those that are veterans or those that have fought to preserve the freedoms of this country, for giving us the freedom to be able to learn whatever we want to learn about. And to position ourselves in order to have views, because that goes in line with scripture and the foundational principles, which state, preach the gospel to the poor.
I have some friends who I'm not super close with them, but people that have called me out and basically said, well, you were lucky. You're lucky because you're tall. Yeah. You're lucky because you're white. You're lucky because you're a man. You're lucky because you grew up in Silicon Valley. And I don't want to discount those things.
Yeah.
I don't want to discount the fact that some may see those as an advantage. Maybe they are an advantage. I don't know. But I think that the attitude of people that call people out for that stuff is much more dangerous than race, gender, et cetera. And the reason I can say that is there has been proof of every race and every gender and every age in any business, there are people who are succeeding in those areas anyway. They take the excuses away. And I'd be way, way less interested in talking about privilege and more interested in talking about why are we making excuses for people that are successful and for people that aren't.
Yeah.
Right? Because making excuses for people that aren't successful doesn't help them. It's the excuse, privilege or not, it's the excuses that people accept as real that keeps them from being successful. When there are people who take those excuses away, who are not white, who are not males, who are not over 50,
I don't
who
remember
may not
who
look
said
like
it,
me.
but we used to repeat it all the time that poverty knows no discrimination.
Poverty knows no discrimination. Yeah. So if poverty knows no discrimination, then what's your excuse for not doing more, right? And that was the same thing when, did I come from a good upbringing? That's debatable. I didn't have a college degree. I certainly didn't know how to make money. And I've had people say, well, why did it take you till you were 30 to learn how to make money? And this is the bending of the reality toward the excuse bias that I'm concerned about. They said, why did it take you till you were 30 to make your first $1 million when you're white, you're tall, you're a male, you speak English, you're raised in a family that had a college degree, a dad that had a college degree? They were like dumbfounded. And I'm like, the fact you're dumbfounded means you don't understand what it really requires, and how any advantages that I may have had were more than made up for by a horrible self-image, a poverty mentality, a victim mentality, a bad attitude. Oh, and did I mention I was an asshole most of the time? That's why my dad kicked me out of the house as a teenager. So I had all these advantages, right? Brothers that were on drugs, parents that were on drugs. I had the white privilege of dropping out of high school. It doesn't make any sense when you actually look at the math behind it. And so rather than saying, oh, well, you were so lucky because you have all these advantages, well, okay, so you're unlucky because you don't have those advantages. What are you going to do about it in order to fix your situation? Because guess what? Whether I have those advantages or believe them or not, I still have to go and fix my situation just like you got to go and fix your situation. And if I'm doing something about it and you're not, I'm going to win. In the end, I'm going to get what I want out of my life. And ultimately, I love what Jim Rohn says. He said the problem is not in the receiving. The problem is in the asking.
Yeah.
And receiving is like the ocean, right? There's plenty for everybody. We just need to take our teaspoon and trade it in for a bucket, as he says.
Well, I think that in every scenario, you can have billionaires who have derelict kids, and you can have
many of them do.
And you can have kids, you can have people that become billionaires who had derelict parents. Like it's all like what you said, it all boils down to it's what you do with what you've got. It's what you do with what you've got in your hands.
It's what you do. It's what you do with what you got. And
it's what you do with what you got.
People talk about wanting to have equal opportunity. What they really want is they want equal output, but they're not necessarily focusing on equal input. And what I would rather focus on is unequal input. If I put in 10 times more than you do because I'm doing something that I like and I'm willing to work my ass off and I get the same or better results, I'm not sorry for that. And somebody else that puts in 10 times what I put in shouldn't be sorry for making the results that they get. So anytime we try to screw with nature and we say, hey, it's seed time and harvest, but it's seed time and harvest if. No, it's seed time and harvest, right? If you're putting the work in and you're doing it right and you're creating something of value and you're offering value to people. I remember one of the greatest things I ever read was, I think it's called The Secret of Success. I'll get the name of the book. Andrew can put it in. But effectively it said that the one thing that is the secret of great success is people who make plans to serve other people and then continue in the execution of those plans despite marital troubles, financial problems, health problems, discouragement, takes longer than you think, early success that gives you feedback that you're better than you are, early failure that takes you longer than you think, and it just continuing on to make plans to execute to serve other people to the best of your ability.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because there seems to be a confusion between serving others and the fear that you're going to be taken advantage of or walked on or becoming a doormat. That's a popular term is there's a concern that you're going to become a doormat if you serve and just keep serving and keep serving and keep serving. So is there a line that now I can be assertive? Now I'm assertive man and not serving man, or is it always just, go the extra mile until...
Well, if you're actually serving, that means you're adding more value than you're taking away, right? I love this talk that Simon Sinek did a great bit. I listened to that and I watched it a couple times. It was really, really good. What he effectively said is, in tribes, the leader takes the hits for the tribe. The leader gets the parking spot. The leader gets the extra money. The leader gets the extra housing allowance or the extra meals, or because he's the one that takes the hits for the tribe. And so when we look at today's modern architecture of the corporation, the trouble we have is not the income disparity. The CEO making 50 or 100 or 1,000 times more than the person that's mopping the floors. The problem we have is where the leader who is making 50 or 100 or 1,000 times more than the guy, or 10,000 times more than the guy or gal mopping the floors. The problem is when they're making that money and they sacrifice the tribe to protect the perks.
Yeah.
That's where we have problems, right? Where you have leaders who will not give up their position. They will not do what's right. They will not protect the team that is feeding them the perks. And they sacrifice the team despite
I
the
like
effort.
that. We were just talking earlier, the kids and I were just talking about the vibe of the whole house, that especially when you live in a close quarters with, 8, 9 people, evaluating and having the capacity to be able to evaluate the needs of the many over the needs of the few is something that has to become a catalyst for a jumping off point of just, it's real life. It's if you can learn how to function within your own home, then you can go out and you can affect your community and you can affect other people around you, and hopefully being able to take a bird's eye view and see how all of the components are all working together, and are they working together in order to continue with the mission moving forward, which is to hopefully maintain.
The leader sees, people don't follow a leader because they don't know what they want or where they're going. They follow a leader because the leader knows what they want and knows where they're going and needs help. There's a vacuum created by leadership that says that, hey, I need help. I can't get where I can see that I can go by myself. I need help. And it creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. And so, like a law of the universe, law of nature, when the leader moves forward and creates more value than they're taking, they create a vacuum, and behind that vacuum fills in people that are following. And leadership, if leadership ever gets to be about the perks, if it ever gets to be about title or position, for anything other than serving at a higher level than they're already serving, then you start to get top heavy, and it gets scary. And I've certainly been in situations like that to where, like, I'm doing what's right for the team, and I'm giving and serving and going all in and just getting every lifeblood ounce of energy extracted. And I got tired because I'm not setting the boundaries to say, I don't really need to work 100 hours every week. I don't need to work every night and every weekend. I don't need to be thinking about work constantly. I can put gym time in. It can burn you out. And then it gets to be to the point where you're starving for rest and recreation, and you're not taking vacation and stuff. So that's something leaders definitely need to watch for, because it's just human nature. If you go burnout pace, eventually you're going to hit the goal of burning out and needing to recalibrate on stuff. But I think for the most part, people are at whatever level in their life that they're at because that's what they want. They want to be at 50 grand a year or 500 grand a year or 5 million a year. They want to get there. And if they're not happy with it, awesome. You still have a chance to improve. It's the people that are making $52,300 a year and they just can't wait to get to Friday so they can suck down half a case of Coronas at the pool. Nothing wrong with sucking down half a case of Corona at the pool. God knows I've done it 100 times. But if that's their entire goal in life is to do that, you're going to get symmetry between where you're at in your mind, where you're at spiritually, what that picture is in your head, and then that's going to show up in your life.
Well, as we wind down the podcast today, I would love to wish you a happiest 30th anniversary.
Thank you.
Happiest 30th
happy 30
anniversary.
Years. That's right.
And it's been just there have been lots of, I wouldn't say roller coaster. Well, I think we've had ups and we've certainly had downs, but it's never been anything that was crazy or scary. It's just been a nice, not between you and me. You and me have never had that. There have been the outside,
we've had some scary stuff
things
outside,
have been pretty horrific, but inside and in our own home, we've always been able to be on the same coaster in the same cart together.
Yeah.
And it's been just great to be able to ride this ride with you and have our kiddos coming along behind us. And
yeah, it's pretty neat to see. In 30 years, we're not where we wanted to be. I still haven't actually W-2'd, the income targets that I've always wanted, and those targets have moved thanks to inflation. But if last year I made between 50 and 60 times what I made the year we got married, which is actually almost 100. The year we got married, probably 100 times, because I didn't work part of that year. So to be able to increase your income 100x in 30 years is pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
And that did not come from doing the same thing over and over and over. It came from doing the same thing over and over and over, and and a business, and a side hustle, and a podcast, and speaking engagements, and consulting arrangements, and reading, and tapes, and books, and functions, and DVDs, and CDs, and online courses, and notepads, and flying across the country to sit down and have conferences and dinners, and just constantly bombarding our minds with where we wanted to go until we were sick of personal growth. And then we take the weekend off, and then we go back to it for another 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years, just over and over and over, maniacal obsession with improving what we were doing and trying to serve at a higher and higher level. And I do think that we're just getting started, because I see all of the compounding that's happened over the last few years. We took on a huge responsibility to have 7 children, and I did not realize that what inflation was going to do to the dollar.
Sure.
And when we got married, our rent was $400 a month, and our rent's more than 10 times that now for a very small, very old house in a neighborhood that is not the fanciest neighborhood in town. So to be paying we make 100 times more, but we're paying 50% in tax because I don't have it structured properly through S corps and ways that we can get out of paying taxes legally, like the successful investors and entrepreneurs do. And our rent's gone up 10 times, and food's gone up 10 times, and electricity's 5x of what it was when we moved into this house. We're not getting 5 times the benefit. It's just costing us 5 times as much to have the same amount of electricity. And car insurance is 5 times as much, and internet and cell phones is 5 times as much. And that's just
My love for you is 5,000 times.
Is it 5,000 times?
Much.
Good. Well, I could use it, because there's inflation coming, and we better figure out how to cover that. So just know, inflation will eat you alive. And if you have a job, unless you're getting stock that grows faster than the rate of inflation and you can grow your assets tax-free, you will always be chasing the dollar and will eventually die broke with nothing for your heirs. So I recommend, if you can, get a business as soon as you can that'll grow faster than the rate of inflation, income tax, the debt you pay on interest, and insurance costs, which are outside your control.
And our prayer for you, as well as our prayer for ourselves, would be that the money would be chasing you down faster than you can spend it. That would be awesome. How great would that be?
Thanks for being with us, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the Jeff Heilman Project. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and do all the little social media things in order to continue our channel to continue to grow, so that we can hopefully have another 30 years of social media content to share. How
live
awesome
another 30
would
years.
that
That'd be great.
Well, God bless you guys. Have an awesome rest of your week, and we'll see you next time on the Jeff Heilman Project. Bye-bye.